Hi everyone, welcome to FilmDirt. John Wick 4 is here. Let's go and check it out. I'll see you on the other side. Well, welcome again everyone. The film's now finished, and where do we start with this? This is a crazy balls-out action film if I ever saw one. Just to remind you again, as always with this channel, this is a full spoiler review. So, it's just one fight after another, and I loved it. You know, you have to almost catch your breath after each scene and after each shot. It's a throwback to 80s action films for me. We've got an expanded story this time that we covered in the third John Wick film, where, you know, and that's also a negative as well, where we slightly strayed from the qualities that made parts 1 and 2 so good, where it was a smaller, simpler revenge movie. It wasn't really revenge against the death of his wife because she died of an illness. It was revenge for losing his dog, house and car. So that's what motivated the John Wick character. And now 4 films in, where we have to introduce all this mythology, and I refer to it as being like the Matrix films, where there's a lot of mumbo jumbo. You know, we have to go somewhere after 4 films. We get a lot of action here. It's just one fight after another, and they're all fantastic, so well choreographed. You've got the cream of the current stunt community working on this film, I'm sure. You've got Scott Adkins, Donnie Yen, and a few other names, and Chad Stahelski putting it all up there. I mean, it's quite an achievement. Donnie Yen here is playing the same character he did in Star Wars, didn't he? It's the blind, skilled warrior. But I love it. I love Donnie Yen. I think he's great on screen. And there's something appealing about him, isn't there? And there's something appealing about the whole film. There's just so much to gain from it. Every actor here I admire. It's almost the next Expendables film where you get all these numerous legends on screen at once. And whilst I get the direction this film went in, I think it's a case of you either get John Wick or you don't. And I get that you have to have a new villain after each film because, you know, one dies, one's got to replace him. He's never truly free, and you never seem to get to the big boss ever. There's always someone else, isn't there? So this villain I think is great, and it's all about getting freed from this high table cult, I guess you could call it. And it kind of is a cult, isn't it? Because when you step back and look at the bigger picture, he pretty much is freed from it. I mean, he's not taking orders anymore. He is rogue and doing his own thing. But he's still got that bond with the cult, and you can take that seriously or you don't. And in this type of case, it's bonded by blood almost, isn't it? So you have to theoretically be freed. So that's the whole point of this movie. And it's just an excuse for one fantastic action scene after another. I love all the setups here. You've got the horseback riding, and you've got my favourite, which is the fight in a huge traffic roundabout. That's great, and everyone's getting run over, and then you introduce dogs as well. It's just balls out mayhem, isn't it? And that's why you go and see films like this. And like I said earlier, it's a real throwback to what we love about cinema. Pure escapism and non-stop action. We enjoyed that in the 80s, and we kind of didn't get the same level of quality, but I think we've got it again in the John Wick films. So I have to touch on a few negatives with this. It depends on how seriously you want to take the negatives. So just for me, the same problem with John Wick 3, I don't like this new filter they had. It's this teal green and bright gold filter which looks completely unnatural, and it spoiled the film for me. If it had a more natural look but still retained all this action that looked kind of a normal setting, I think it would have hit home much more. But I've seen it referred to as candy coloured visuals, and I don't like that. I don't want it to look like a candy filter slapped on with all these bright neon colours. I kind of liked more the subtle look of parts 1 and 2, where it was kind of dusky, and I outlined that in those 2 reviews I did earlier. So that's an unfortunate negative with this. And also the runtime. I think this is 2 hours 40 minutes, so each instalment has got increasingly longer, and I think it's just a bit too long for this subject matter, where it is just all action, and then we stop for a chat, and then more action, and stop for another mythology chat. I just think it's just too long for this. I'd like to have seen it a bit tighter. I think we spent a little bit too long with Scott Adkins' character and that card game. I think that could have been cut a bit tighter. You know, he's wearing a fat suit here, but he looks, to me, completely convincing. And I love the actor as well. I think he's great. And for all the actors here, I think the standard of acting is fantastic. And the dogs as well, you know, I love dogs. And I'm sure some of them are CGI again, but it all looks convincing, especially all the injuries and the rolling down all the steps, you know, leading up to the church. You know, I love that he was supposed to get to the church for the final battle, but he's being continuously attacked before he even gets there. So that's a lot of suspense right there. Is he going to make it to the church and climb all those steps? And also I have to touch on the ending. I just found it all a little bit bittersweet. I love the point where it was going to be a pistol showdown. I was expecting another huge fight, and I'm glad we didn't get that, because we've had so many up to this point, and the film had already gone on for about 2.5 hours by this point, and I think we're just exhausted. And I could sense a few people around me in the cinema were starting to yawn. I think we'd all had enough by that point. So I'm glad it was just something different, and we have a quick pistol showdown, although they did extend it a little bit, didn't they? But I didn't feel like he died at the end. I thought he was just collapsing due to exhaustion. So I'm just wondering, is this really the final John Wick film, or is he faking his own death maybe? I don't know. It's a possibility. I didn't feel like he died. So we'll have to see if there is a John Wick 5, or if we're going to get some spin-offs, which seems to be one of the best ways for studios to continue their franchises now. So I'll give this a score. I have to say I loved it overall, and I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. I think it's just still not as good as the first 2 films. I think they were both great. It's better than the third film, so I think 4.5 stars is about right for me. And you have to think, does the 4th film really improve the previous films or explain anything that we needed to know? I don't think so. They're pretty much separate entities, and this one more so, because we only really touch on his relationship with his wife, and for me we did stray a little bit too far from that and went into the Matrix mumbo jumbo that we've seen previously. Thinking back now with John Wick 4 in mind, I think all the scores I gave the previous films were about right, and I'll stick with those. So that concludes my review. Thanks again for joining me, and just to let you know, as usual, when I go and see new movies, I did spend my own money to get the ticket. I don't accept the free tickets or enter into any of the marketing incentive scheme that a lot of the other YouTube reviewers do. It kind of doesn't sit well with me, and I just want to be able to go as a punter. All my opinions are completely my own and unbiased. It was great speaking to you, and join me again for next time. Like and subscribe, you know the drill. Speak to you again. All the best and take care.